Hi guys, welcome to another video from Overbite Gaming, and today we are taking a look at Terrordrome Reign of the Legends. Now, I did the Boogeyman one previously, which was the free one. This one you have to pay for. It's £11.39 on Steam currently, and it is in early access. So this won't be a review, this will be a first impressions video. There are currently 8 playable characters with an additional 4 in the character select screen that I am unable to tell you who they are other than guesses from their appearance. There looks to be some kind of knight, maybe an animated suit of armor, a vampire, I think it's Dracula in fact, some skull demon thing, maybe a Wendigo maybe, and possibly the Invisible Man because he's got sunglasses and his face is wrapped in bandages. Then again, he could be an interpretation of the mummy. The playable ones are Frankenstein, Sasquatch, Alex Van Helsing, Netherman, Bloody Mary, this, or T.H.I.S. Mr. Hyde, and the White Lady. Now, the problem for the studio with the previous game is all of their characters were licensed. So you had Chucky, you had Freddy, Jason, Maniac Cop, Tin Head, Ghostface from Scream, all these guys, so they couldn't make money. They had to release it for free, which is fine. And it was a relatively good game, especially for free. And it was really interesting playing those characters. Now what they've done this time is they've taken proper cryptids and slightly amended them so they can actually make money basically. So you got Frankenstein, who doesn't look like the Karloff Frankenstein exactly because that would be copyright infringement, but the character himself is pretty much, I think it's public, available to the public to use in which way. I think it's been long enough that its copyright has elapsed. And there's like Bloody Mary is an urban legend, so there's no real copyright on that. The White Lady is eponymous. There's been multiple White Ladies in terms of ghosts sighted around. She looks a bit more like something out of a Japanese horror movie with the long dark hair and the white dresses, and she kind of floats. But I mean, the White Lady is such a generic character that they can get away with it. Neverman looks like a take on Slender Man, but he's very different in that he has mouths for eyes, which is kind of freaky, but it's cool. Mr. Hyde, another one that's a very old book, and I suspect the copyright's lapsed on that as well, which is why they can do it. He's classified, they each have classifications, so you have like monster, demon, I think Hyde is the only one out of them. You have ghost, monster, yeah, Hyde is superhuman, spirit, demon, hunter, cryptid, monster. Currently most of them are completely different. With only 4 to come, I don't know quite why they would classify them like that, because there's not going to be very many in either class. But as a game, it's a little bit janky. As I said, it is in early access, so we can expect it to improve as it goes on. It runs relatively well. I did have to turn it down a little bit, so it's not incredibly optimized, but it runs at a steady 60. Now I've disabled a couple of them, just really high level anti-aliasing and lighting and stuff like that. So it still looks good, it's just not as good as it could possibly look. The gameplay itself is very reminiscent of the previous one in that it's a bit janky. They haven't got like a third-party key mapper to do the work for the joypad this time, although I'm still finding some of the special moves are a little bit tricky to pull off. It's probably just me being rubbish, but that could be a consideration to have. It's currently sat at very positive on Steam, and it is a good game. I am interested to see where they go with it, so whether we'll get, after the 4 characters that we know we'll end up getting, whether there'll be any more. Certainly there are a lot of cryptids that I'm not sure are in the planning. I mean, you could have the Chupacabra, he'd be very different from everything we've got here. Maybe the Mothman, things like that. I mean, you have things that are a definite nod, like this is clearly a Pennywise analogy or a Bob Ray analogy, so he is a clown, essentially. So he's a scary demon clown, so, you know, who else is that going to be? Maybe Killjoy, but probably Pennywise. And Alex Van Helsing is obviously like a descendant of the Van Helsings after Dracula, which is why I assume the vampire-looking dude that we can't select yet is indeed Dracula, so that makes sense. He apparently is the protagonist of the game, from the blurb. There's no story mode currently in it. It is just, you have an arcade ladder, you have one-on-one, you have online, you have training, and a tutorial. The tutorial this time is pretty useful because there's a few mechanics in it. Sorry, that's my GPU going mental. Don't know if you heard that, but yes, it went mental, and it's calmed down somewhat. Let's stop it doing whatever it's doing, because I don't like that noise in the background of my recording. There we go. So yeah, there's a few mechanics which are quite well implemented, but very tricky to do. So there's a dodge, but you have to get the dodge like perfect, and you'll basically like lean back out of the way of a strike. It's really good for breaking combos and stuff like that, but as I say, you have to time it perfectly. So generally speaking, unless I'm getting hammered around the screen, which can happen, I tend to not use it very much. I just tend to pull back and block. Having said that, the game does default to hard mode, so be aware when you first play it, it will be set on hard and you will get massacred. I was legitimately worried that I was terrible at, well, I'm still terrible at the game, but I'm more terrible than I usually am at these sort of games, because I couldn't get past the first guy. Like, the first guy I fought was Sasquatch, and he was just bouncing me off the edge of the screen and knocking me about up into the air, and I literally couldn't stop him. Every time he did, he'd take like 25% of my health bar, and then he'd block everything I was throwing and dodge out the way, and then come back with a combo of his own. So he was just absolutely killing me. And then I figured out it was actually set on hard. Definitely don't use that as your initial selection. The controls themselves are fairly similar to the previous game, so if you've played that, you do have a leg up in that regard. There is a pause screen where you can access all the command list as in the previous game, so you can see your specials and all that. As I said, some of them are a little bit tricky to pull off. At least a lot of the sweeping ones, so like the quarter circles and stuff, I really have trouble doing. In fact, I have better success on the D-pad rather than the analog stick for that. You can use either to play the game, but it's a little bit jank. I would expect it to improve. I mean, it's not. I mean, at £11.39, it's not an expensive game. If you get in now, I imagine the price will probably be the same at full release. So you can't like look at Mortal Kombat 11 and be like, well, that plays smoother, because yeah, of course, it's got a huge studio behind it, and you had to pay like 50 quid for it. So yes, it's going to play smoother because it's 5 times the cost, and probably cost a whole lot more to develop. I mean, the engine it uses is the Unity engine, which is a pretty decent engine. I mean, it's one that you see a lot of indie developers use because you can do a lot of impressive stuff with it, and you know, it's easy to use in the sort of realm of programming, I guess you could say. So I'm happy with the purchase. I'm interested in seeing how it's going to progress. You can, much like in Mortal Kombat, sort of impart more power to your special moves by holding down one of the shoulder buttons. And that uses up a bar. Once you've filled your bar completely, you can do one of your super moves, which, because there's a lot of like semicircles and half circles involved, I've yet to pull one off successfully. I'm being totally honest. As I said, it's probably just me, but the game itself isn't, in terms of controls, that polished. It could definitely use some work, and I expect we'll see that, because as I said, it's only in early access. It doesn't have all the characters available, but what's there is fun enough that it makes me interested in it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else is brought out. So there you go, guys. That's my first impressions of Terrordrome Reign of the Legends. It's interesting. It maybe doesn't have the hook because it doesn't have the iconic characters the first game did. But again, you know, it's all very well to make a free game, put it out there, and make no money off of it because of copyright. But at the end of the day, these people put a lot of time into these things, and you know they deserve to get paid for it. So even though it doesn't have the hook of the iconic characters, it still has enough interesting characters in it to satisfy me. Would I have liked to have seen a sequel with better graphics, better controls, and utilize like a roster of horror movie icons? Of course, that's always going to be neat. But at the end of the day, they've got mortgages to pay, same as us, so I can't fault them for that. And the effort they put in for an interesting cast of characters is pretty good. I would like sort of different intro animations, maybe. I mean, it's kind of like a nice to have feature in the fact that they all have one, and before every fight they do it. And you can skip it, but I would have liked to have seen a bit more variety in that regard. But anyway, guys, that's my first impressions. Let me know down below if you've played it and what you think about it, or whether or not you intend to get it. I don't know. As I say, it's an early access game, so they're always a bit of a coin flip. You don't know whether it will be abandoned. You don't know whether it will be improved in any meaningful fashion. Some are huge success stories. Others, not so much. So, you know, it's the risk you take at paying it early access stage. But it does help the developers, and it increases the chances that they will be able to improve the game and give you the finished product, because obviously funding is very important for making a game. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. I'll catch you next week. You take it easy.
Dirty thought.